Hello and welcome. In this video, I will show you the various ways you can apply CSS to an HTML document. There are three main ways you can apply CSS to an HTML document. You can apply CSS externally, you can apply CSS internally, and also apply CSS inline. I'm going to illustrate with a basic example of how you apply CSS using these three methods. I'm going to start with an external CSS. An external CSS is basically CSS that is referenced from an external file. So to begin, I want to create a CSS file. So inside my project here, I've already got a folder called Style Sheets. So I'm going to click on that folder, and inside that folder, I'm going to create a new file. Just right click and click on New File, and I'll just give the file a name. I'll call it my style.css and just press enter. You can see now it's showing us style sheet my style.css. So this file now is a CSS file. Any content I write in here is going to be CSS. So the example I want to do, I want to style all the paragraph tags. So this is a paragraph tag here. This is also a paragraph tag. If I click on my index.html, you see that I've got a P tag here, which is this one, and the bottom here I've got P tag here, which is referencing to that. So if I click on my style sheet again, this is my style.css. So in order to create a style that will make all the elements, all the paragraph elements a different color, you start with the selector. So P will be the selector because that's the element I'm targeting to apply styling to. Next, you need curly braces, opening and closing. You do enter to separate, and in between the curly braces is where I will apply the styling. So what I want to do, the property I want to style is the color. So I write color, and then you must put a colon followed by the value I want to give the color. I'm going to make it blue and then a semicolon. So that's basically all the CSS. So I'm just going to save that, click save all. So now I've got a CSS. So I need to find a way to reference the CSS from my index.html file, and the way to do that is via a link element. So I have now added the link element here. So this is it. You got link, that's the name of the element, and then you need the href attribute. I forgot to put a closing quote there. That's why the rest of the text is highlighted. So if you notice here, the href, it's basically an attribute, and the value is style sheet, which is this folder. It's referencing the location of the style sheet, and the name of the style sheet is called mystyle.css, which is this. And then next we've got this rel attribute. The rel attribute defines the relationship that the linked resource has to the document from which it is referenced. So here we're referencing the style sheet, and the type, this is another attribute which indicates what type of document the style sheet is, and the value is a text. It's a text and slash CSS file. So this is how you would reference an external CSS inside your HTML document. So I'm referencing this CSS file from my HTML document, and it's important to know that you must place it in the head section. The reason for this is that before the page loads, you want any CSS that's available to be applied as the page loads. So if I save this, save all, and refresh, you can see here now my paragraph has turned blue, because if I click it on my CSS here, I've given it a property of blue, that's how this came about. And I've referenced that using the link element, which must be placed in the head section of your HTML document. So the external CSS is the most effective way of applying CSS. You can imagine if you have a website that has several hundred pages, you can apply CSS just from one file. So that's the benefit of using CSS from an external file. And if you want to make changes, you only have to go to one file and make the changes on that file, and it will replicate across the relevant pages. Next, I want to show you how to add an internal CSS. So what I've done, I've commented out the external CSS reference so that I can show you how to add an internal CSS. And you do that using the style tag. So you type in style, use the style element. So with all elements, you should have an opening and closing. So I'm just going to tab to separate the style element, and in between the style element is where you apply the actual CSS rule. So I'll start with the element I want to style, which is a paragraph, and then I do a curly braces, opening and closing, and I select the property I want to style, which is a color. You add a colon and then give it a value, and then semicolon to end. You can see here it's already changed. All right, so that's basically how you add a style to a HTML element internally inside the document. This is not a very effective way. If you've got a tiny document, it's okay, but if you've got multiple web pages, always best to go for an external CSS. You can imagine if you had to change all the styling in the HTML document. Also, it makes the HTML document a bit messy, so it's always good to separate the CSS if possible. So that's an example of an internal CSS. So next, I'm going to show you how to apply an inline CSS. To show you the illustration, I'm going to target this element here. This H1 here is going to be my selector. So when you are applying CSS inline, you have to do it in the opening element. So I want to make this element here, this H1, I'm going to make the text red. So inside the opening, I just do a space to tab, and then I type in the word style, followed by an equals to, and in quotes, I have to type in the value, the property I want to style. So it's going to be a color, and the value is going to be red. All right, and then when you're done, you put a closing quote, and then you close. You can see it's turned red already. So when you are using an internal CSS, you have to add it in the opening element. You can see here I've done it inside the opening element, and it uses the style as an attribute. So this style becomes an attribute, where the values is the property you're styling, and the value for the property value. So this is a property, this is a property value. So you can see here it has reflected, but very, very sparingly you should use internal CSS. You can imagine if you have to change CSS inline or internally, it will take a lot of time. So it is rarely used. Just in very rare cases do people use inline CSS. For example, inline CSS will override the external or internal. So if you specified a different color inside the external and you change the color inline, the inline will supersede the external. But very rarely do people use inline styling. I've just shown you here just for illustration purposes what people use, what the professional use, and the proper way to do it is to use an external CSS style sheet and define all your CSS inside that external file, and then it's easy to just make the changes on just the one file. So to conclude, I've shown you how to apply CSS externally, internally, and inline. And the most effective way is external. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to get rid of my inline here, just to bring my document back to how it was. Okay, you can see it's returned back, and I'm also going to get rid of the internal CSS. I'm going to remove the comment from the external CSS, and that should be it. So I now have my external CSS. I'm going to leave that link there. So if I want to add more CSS, all I need to do is go into the CSS file here and just add all my CSS. So you can see it's very effective to do it this way rather than internal or inline. So that's it for this video on applying CSS. Thank you and bye for now.